everybody, and welcome to The Drop, presented by Discover. I'm Arda Öcal here with Greg Wyshynski, who is in Edmonton covering the Stanley Cup Final for ESPN on site in the arena. We might be separated, but The Drop will be with you for every Stanley Cup Final post game. And Wish, I got to tell you, buddy, it was a very fun game number one.
It was awesome. You know, the great thing about the Stanley Cup Final, and I nod to our friends in the NBA, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is having clearly the two best teams in your league facing off for the championship. And it's not only the two best teams in the league, it's the two best teams in the league who both completely believe in the quality of their own kung fu, who completely believe that the Stanley Cup should be theirs and have the confidence and the poise to go along with it. And what we saw tonight was a back and forth affair. At different points in the game, it seemed like one team was going to maybe run away with it or the other team was. And we never got there. I mean, it goes to overtime. It takes a horrible mistake in overtime to lead to a power play to lead to the Oilers' goal by Draisaitl. But the rest of the time, man, it was the heavyweight fight we were all promised.
Absolutely. Last year, the Oilers almost pull off the reverse sweep and lose by one goal. The Cats win the championship, and now they're looking to defend in the rematch. Let's catch you up on game number one between the Panthers and the Oilers. Let's get to the highlight because it was a very fun game. There's Sam Bennett and the Florida Panthers against Connor McDavid, his old junior teammate, and the Edmonton Oilers. The cup is in the building for game number one. And Wish, the Oilers set the tone very early, just over a minute in. There's Leon.
There's Leon. They needed a good start. Stuart Skinner told me when he saw the cup last year, he got googly eyes. This year, it was like old hat, and the Oilers showed it with the way they started.
So that's Sam Bennett scoring a goal. The puck would actually, I believe, bounce off of him. And then they challenged this for goaltender interference. Bennett trips off of Kulak's leg. It would be deemed a good goal, Wish.
It was a funny little trip by Bennett. He's quite good at the things he does. But here's the thing, Arda. The Panthers then cash in later. Well, this is Bennett scoring their third goal. They cashed in with Brad Marchand scoring the third goal on the power play they earned from the coach's challenge on the delay of game. And that was quite a mistake for Chris Knobloch, the Edmonton coach, but he said he would do it all over again if he had the chance.
Mattias Ekholm would score his first goal of the postseason. The Oilers now have 20 different skaters that have scored in these Stanley Cup playoffs, which is tied for second most in Stanley Cup playoff history. And the Oilers kept it coming. And there's the overtime goal. As they tied it up, it went to overtime. And there's Connor passing to Leon. What a way for the Oilers to win game number one, Wish.
So I picked the Panthers in 6. I'm sticking with it. Why not? I made the pick. But I got to admit that once I got to Edmonton and started speaking to people here on the ground, there is one thing I might have underestimated in this matchup between Edmonton and Florida, this rematch. It's that not only did Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl have a fairly inconsequential ride to the final insofar as the length of series, being physically mauled by opponents, they're also healthy, like much healthier, especially in the case of Draisaitl, than they were in the Stanley Cup Final last season. And so what do you see? You see McDavid make a just gorgeous pass through the crease to Mattias Ekholm, completely baffling the Florida defense and allowing Ekholm to score the game-tying goal. And then, of course, in overtime, as we've seen a billion times, McDavid to Draisaitl for the game winner. Those, they haven't needed them to do everything in this postseason. Their depth has played really well, but it's a good reminder that the difference in this series could easily be that the Oilers have maybe the two best players in the world on their team, and they made a difference in the game-tying and game-winning goals.
Yeah, to your point about depth, I mean, the Oilers won 12 games without Matthias Ekholm, and a lot of people thought that he was the linchpin, and many people still believe that, of the Oilers defense. And Leon Draisaitl, by scoring that goal, now has 3 overtime goals in the postseason, which ties the NHL record. Wish, let me put it, let me throw it to you like this. This is my analysis of the Oilers in game number one, and I'm going to respect your Cats in 6 prediction. The Oilers started strong. They got a goal in 66 seconds. Then they go down 3-1. So they face adversity, and people are like, uh-oh, what's going to happen here? But they face that adversity head on, and they tie the game. And then they go to overtime, and they get a goal from their 2 superstars. To me, sure, a blowout win would have been nice for Oilers fans, but sprinkle in that adversity they faced in this game. This is a terrific, a demon slaying kind of game, especially from last season, game number one.
So there's 2 ways to look at this. The first is what all the Oilers were saying on media day yesterday, which is that they're just more comfortable now than they were last year. Like Connor McDavid, don't want you to think I'm talking about Connor Brown. Connor McDavid said that last season felt like a circus. And it felt monumental. Like the whole thing felt kind of overwhelming because they had never done it before. Florida had been in the Stanley Cup final the previous season against Vegas. They're much more attuned to what's going on. The Oilers, to a man, said, we had went through the experience last year. We went through the heartbreak in Game 7. We are a changed team. We understand how to do this now. McDavid himself said, I'm so much more comfortable this year than last year. But the other way to look at it, Arda, is, and this is something that Chris Knobloch, their coach, said tonight when I asked him about the idea of them just being more comfortable in the final, is that they've shown this ability to overcome adversity throughout the playoffs. Remember, there was a moment in that Vegas series where Riley Smith scores that goal with like no time left on the clock. That's a heartbreak. There's some other moments during the playoffs where they felt some adversity, going down 0-2 to the Kings, for example, and they've passed every test. So it's not just the experience of the final last year has made them a more comfortable and poised team at this stage. It's their having shown over and over again that they can handle adversity. Oh, and by the way, can close out games. Now, they didn't do it tonight, but this is once again tracking back to the Dallas series. They're owning the third period. 2 shots on goal against Skinner. And then 3 consecutive games where the Dallas Stars only had 4 shots on goal in the third period. Their third periods have been exquisite in the way that they need to be exquisite for a team that has learned how to win the cup.
And to your point, Stuart Skinner played very well in overtime because he was getting peppered in the first 6 or 7 minutes by the Panthers, kept the Oilers in it, which led to the power play, and then, of course, the goal. Let me ask you about the Panthers. So they had a pretty impressive record when leading heading into the third period. They were 29-0. I think that includes leading after the first and second period. And now this is their first loss in that span. That it's still like they still played a good game. Wish, yeah, sure, they had 2 shots in the third period. You're right, like that wasn't their best effort there, but it didn't feel like they had too many weaknesses in game number one. They played a very good game. This game went to extra frames. So I guess what is your takeaway for the Cats in game one?
Well, first of all, they showed that they're going to just keep doing that thing where they smell blood in the water. You know, like this is the 5th straight win they've had where they've scored 2 goals in the span of 4 minutes or less. Like it's incredible how this team can pour it on. The problem is they couldn't find that one extra insurance goal. And in this series, it's basically McDavid insurance because you know he's going to do something, right? And then he did something with the pass to Ekholm, and all of a sudden you find yourself in overtime. I think they played well. I think they could be happy with a lot of parts of their team. I thought the Marchand line played really well. I thought the Bennett line was good to a point. Maybe it was could be a little bit better defensively. If there's one piece of their game I didn't love, it was the Barkov line. Like there were moments where Barkov had some opportunities to do what he does in the offensive zone and create something out of nothing like we saw in the final game against Carolina in the East. Didn't happen. I thought Reinhart was kind of ordinary tonight. And then Verhaeghe didn't have that moment that we were all kind of waiting for Verhaeghe to have, where he, pops in the most important goal of the game. So a little bit of concern about the top line, not really playing as well as they should. But other than that, I think there's some things that they can build on here. And obviously, Thomas Nosek makes a terrible mistake in overtime. I thought Paul Maurice was great tonight, by the way, talking about Nosek with the delay of game call, the puck over the glass. He said, look, we're going to make sure he doesn't eat alone tonight. That's a great point. Like, this guy's feeling the worst. I mean, he just screwed up in the Stanley Cup final, and his screw up ended up in the back of the net. And the Panthers are going to rally around this guy and let him know it's okay, and let him know, hey, you're part of the reason why we're back here. And I thought that was a nice moment from Maurice tonight.
And I bet one of the first people that will initiate that is Brad Marchand, because he's been such a character guy in that locker room. I can see him being one of the first guys to be like, hey, man, it's all good. We got this. Everything is fine. All right, so that is us dissecting game number 1. Just a reminder, everybody, we are going to be here post-game, every Stanley Cup final game, on the drop, here on NHL on ESPN YouTube. Wish will be at the arena. I will be here steering the ship. Right now, let's get to this. It is our winners and losers presented by Discover. And Wish, why don't you start us off? Because there's a particular captain playing in this series that just keeps adding to his trophy case.
Alexander Barkov. He won the Selke again, folks, but he also won the King Clancy Award, which is the big community award the NHL gives out. He was surprised with the award by children from Joe DiMaggio's Children's Hospital, a place that Barkov has supported through the years. When they bought in the Selke trophy, Barkov said, I was not expecting it at all. When they bought in another trophy, it was pretty overwhelming for me. I'm truly honored by the award. Here's the thing about Barkov that I find interesting, Arda. Do you know that there's only 2 players in NHL history that have won the Selke and the Hart Trophy for league MVP? I feel like, and those 2 players, by the way, are Bobby Clark and Sergei Fedorov. I feel like Barkov has been kind of like categorized as the Selke guy. And I think it's sort of unfortunate, because I think at the end of the day, this guy should have been in the MVP mix much more than he has been. But at the end of the day, hey, you're the best defensive forward, and that's all we're going to give you.
Pretty sure that was Adeline, Panthers communications, hiding behind the door in that clip there. I love shouting out Adeline. She's one of the best in the entire league. But yeah, that's a really cool stat about Sasha Barkov, and how rare it is for a player to win a Selke and a Hart in their career. No Hart trophies will be given to the relationship between Pete DeBoer and Jake Ottinger. That is a loser. We're going to expand this to the previous series as well, as we talk winners and losers here, presented by Discover. Pete DeBoer ain't happy with Jake Ottinger, particularly against the Edmonton Oilers in their final game. He pulled him after 2 shots and 2 goals allowed early in the first period. He had some very direct comments about Jake Ottinger's recent performances in the postseason against the Edmonton Oilers, essentially saying, hey, this is a big enough sample size. I'm paraphrasing there, but I don't know. I mean, look, I know that they're professionals. They're making millions of dollars a year, and there's going to be trolls on social media, and there's going to be negativity that you face when you have a spotlight that big as an athlete. But when you hear your own coach saying those things, that's not often something that can be easily repaired.
Pete DeBoer throwing his goalie under the bus. It's never happened before. Marc-Andre Fleury. Look, you can't say your franchise goalie can't beat an opponent, which is basically what he said about Jake Ottinger. It's not as if the Dallas Stars are not going to see the Edmonton Oilers in the playoffs again. And when they do, every single question that Ottinger will be asked will be about his coach saying that he can't beat this team. I thought it was unfair. I don't think it's Jake Ottinger's fault that Dallas Stars scored 2 goals in 3 games against the Edmonton Oilers and basically got boo-boo faced because they couldn't do the things they wanted to do offensively against that defense. Could he be better? Absolutely. I think Jake Ottinger would be the first one to say he could be better in the playoffs. But this sure as hell was not on him, this loss to the Oilers. And I think DeBoer stepped over the line in the way he talked about his goalie.
Winner, the look. I'm talking about Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. They've had a couple of these moments, definitely going down 2-0 against the Los Angeles Kings in the first round. They have a moment where they're sitting, and this is game one against the Dallas Stars, where they sort of look at each other in this exact what you see here. And then it just does a complete 180. Everything turns around for Edmonton. It's as if they're saying, we are deciding that we are going to take over and our fortunes will reverse and we're going to dominate the rest of the way. And that's exactly what they did against Dallas.
First off, congratulations to Tumblr on 2 NHL players sending smoldering looks to each other. But you're absolutely right. Like it's as if they both kind of telepathically gave each other the, all right, we've got to put an end to this malarkey and take over this series. And again, like we saw in game one against the Florida Panthers, when they decide they're going to make plays, they're going to make plays. And you just have to hope that you're far enough ahead that those plays don't result in a game-tying goal or a game-winning goal, which in the case of game one, they both did. For me, loser, original 6 teams are my loser, Arda. The Oilers are playing in the Stanley Cup final for the 9th time, which passes the Philadelphia Flyers for the most among non-original 6 franchises and ranks 7th in NHL history. Chicago has 13 appearances. The Rangers have 11 appearances. Original 6, we coming for you!
Yes, they certainly are. The Oilers just continue to make the Cup final. If you understand the reference, I'm glad you stopped where you stopped. Winner, NHL versus NBA debates. Take this one. I want to take the next 2 after this, so please take this one as well.
So the NHL has a Stanley Cup final between 2 teams that went 7 games last year, between 2 teams that are obviously, based on their play in these playoffs, the best teams in the postseason. As we saw in game 1 of the Stanley Cup final, it's a heavyweight fight. Every game is going to be a battle. No one's going to want to give an inch. It's packed with personalities and star players and 2 teams with a lot of animosity for each other. It's the kind of series where if it doesn't go 7, it'd be a surprise. The NBA has Oklahoma City against the Pacers team, where in a best case scenario, they maybe win once. So for those who are fans of the NHL versus NBA debate, looking at you, PK Subban, perhaps this is one where we can plant our flag and say, yes, our final will be better than your final.
Hey, shout out to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, okay? Canada representing the NBA. Let's go MVP. Loser, coaches in the handshake line. This has been a much debated topic. Paul Maurice has spoken about it at length now, not only after this moment that you're seeing here between him and Rod Brind'Amour, where now we know he was saying, hey, let's not go into the handshake line. But Rod Brind'Amour said, look, I prefer to go in the handshake line. Oftentimes I have former players. I would love to shake their hand. Wish, I'm going to offer something up here. This is my solution to all of this. Okay? My solution is, let's take Paul Maurice's lead and let's all agree, everyone on the same page, new paradigm, new rule. The handshake line is only for the players at center ice. The center ice handshake line is only for the players, nobody else. No staff, no coaches, nobody else but the players that suited up in that game. Then you have the coaches that shake hands by the benches. And then following all of those coaches' handshakes, Wish, they wait at their respective benches on the ice by the boards. And at that point, they can either wave over players or players can go to them for select number of player coach handshakes. And then everyone can leave the ice. 3-step process. Solved. Easy. Done. Because I agree with Paul Maurice in the sense that I like the players shaking hands with the players. I think that is a very nice visual.
I'm famously anti-handshake line. I find it to be horrible for the team that lost. They've got to like suck it up and congratulate the person who just like crushed their dreams, ruined their season, made their life miserable. Now go shake his hand. Hate it. And your idea is to make more of them. So I'm not a fan of it. But listen, going with the premise that we're going to keep doing the handshake line, I'm actually Team Brindamore. I thought he made an excellent point that the coach going through the handshake line at times is congratulating or giving condolences to someone he has a personal connection with. Could be a former player, could in some cases be a former teammate, could be somebody he coached on a national team. Like, I do agree with Brindamore. Like, if we're going to do this, the coaches do play a role in these series. They do have connections with the opponents. I think it's only fair that they go through the line. But I do give Maurice credit for one thing. The coaches are one thing. The random guy in a tracksuit that the players have no idea who the hell it is, like the fourth trainer, I do agree that maybe they shouldn't be in the handshake line.
Oh, so now we're parsing who's in the line. So is it just the coach, maybe the assistant coaches, maybe not the owner and the general manager at the end of the playoffs? Okay, so we're basically going to have to audit the handshake line. We need it's almost like a starting lineup before the game. We need a list before every elimination game of everyone that is allowed in the handshake line.
I think hockey operations personnel is a good cutoff point. I don't think Betty from catering should be in the handshake line giving condolences to Jamie Benn. Like, that's where I would probably put the cutoff line. But I do think that some hockey operations personnel, and the coach in particular, should be allowed to be in the handshake line.
Benny from catering has given his blood, sweat, and tears to the Florida Panthers organization for 30 years. And you're telling Benny from catering that he can't be in the handshake line to shake Connor McDavid's hand? Are you also saying he doesn't deserve a cup ring?
No, that's different. Everybody deserves a cup ring. They've all helped together. I mean, if it wasn't for the delicious, penne alla vodka that the team gets to eat before the game, they would have never won the cup. You know that.
Loser. Buildings that are lit up in different city team colors. We've talked about this on this show, Greg Wyshynski, about how the Empire State Building essentially has been commandeered into the lights of any sports team in the United States, like when the Eagles won the Super Bowl and it's lit up green. There you just saw the CN Tower, one of the tallest buildings in the world, certainly a Canadian landmark, not just Toronto. But the problem is it is lit up in Edmonton Oilers colors. Who is asking for this, Greg? Who wants this? Do Oilers fans want to see a landmark in Toronto lit up in their colors? You know who got this right? The Tower in Calgary. Look at what they posted. Just to be totally clear, this was last year. The Calgary Tower will be lit blue and orange on Monday, June 10th. For Action Anxiety Day, and for no other reason whatsoever. We've got love for our neighbors to the north and all across this province, but no, never. And that's how it should be. Do not light buildings in one city for another city's team. It is not a national team wish. Enough with this ridiculous argument, and stop lighting the CN Tower in any other club team color in the NHL other than blue and white.
It is kind of one of the greatest misconceptions about a Canadian team trying to win the cup for the first time since 1993, that the rest of the country has their back. Now, the rest of the country probably would love someone to beat Florida for various reasons, income tax reasons, we hate the Panthers reasons, but it doesn't necessarily mean they want to see Edmonton win the cup. Like, nobody in Calgary really wants to see Edmonton win the cup. I'm still pissed off that they made Calgary retire Gretzky's number. That's insane. They should have never let that happen. So it is interesting, and I completely agree with you. Like, the idea that you're lighting up the CN Tower in Edmonton colors is a bit much. Like, if you really want to do something, go red and white. Go the colors of the Canadian flag to represent how much we aspire to bring the cup back home where it belongs, in theory. I know Canadians believe that, but it actually belongs to the United States.
Can I ask you a question? As a Devils fan, if the Empire State Building, which is in the heart of Manhattan, New York, is lit up in Devils colors, Are you happy about this?
Yes, I am, because
You
it
are?
show because I have perpetual little brother syndrome with the Rangers. And so the idea that the Empire State Building would be in Devils colors is very impressive. And in fact, it's different because there's a ton of Devils fans who live in New York. Every kid in Jersey who grew up a Devils fan is now a day trader in Manhattan, and they can finally afford tickets to see the team. And so I think it's more applicable. It's different when you're in Toronto. Like, if you don't want the CN Tower to represent any other Canadian team. You believe to be yourselves the center of the hockey universe, and as such, you don't laud another Canadian NHL team. I think I completely agree with you, Arda.
Okay, fine. I'll buy the geographical context. So Devils, Islanders, I get that. I'll even include Buffalo as a state of New York team. Fine. I will concede that. But Philadelphia, Boston, any other team in the
Exactly.
NHL, I think it's
No,
ridiculous. I think it's
it's
ridiculous.
stupid. I completely
Okay.
agree. It's stupid.
All right, that's winners and losers presented by Discover. You are watching The Drop. Remember, we will be here with you post game after every Stanley Cup final game, the rematch between the Panthers and Oilers. Greg Wyshynski will be in Edmonton and Florida as the series progresses. Okay, before we go, let's just do a little bit of off-season talk here as we've dissected game one. Game two, of course, will be on Friday, and we will be with you after that game as well. Off-season buy or sell. Let's stay with the losers here as we move into the off-season buy or sell. Let's start Wish. Buy or I'm going to give you a bunch of statements, and you tell me if you're buying or selling them. The
All right.
Dallas Stars, buy or sell, will trade Jason Robertson.
At first, I was going to sell on that because it seems insane to trade the only guy that was there offensively for you in that series against Edmonton. But the more you think about it and the more you hear about it, I'm going to buy on this one. He's going to need a new contract soon. They've got other contractual considerations, including Thomas Harley coming up in the next few years. And maybe they don't want to commit the years, the money to Robertson. And I also think that when you think about the holes in that team's lineup, you could turn him into, let's say, another great defenseman to play behind Heiskanen. That's the kind of player you'd need to trade to acquire that type of talent. So as much as it's kind of crazy to think they'd cut bait on Jason Robertson, I'm gonna buy on this one. I think there might be something to it.
Buy or sell, Mitch Marner will play in the Western Conference next season.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I'm gonna sell on that one. I kind of think that maybe he'll end up in the East. I kind of think that it could be someplace like Carolina, where obviously there's a ton of interest in him. There's still like a 2% chance it could be Toronto. But again, that's not to say it's not an impossibility. Chicago, Vegas, Los Angeles, Anaheim, a ton of teams could be in the Mitch Marner business. But his stuff's in Toronto. He might want to stay as close to Toronto as possible. So I'll sell on that one. What about you?
I am selling on it. I think he stays in the East. Toronto's still a possibility, a minor one, but still a possibility. Carolina could certainly be in the mix. There are some teams in the Eastern Conference that I think would be either looking for, already contemplating, or have their sights on Mitch Marner as a potential player for them next season. Buy or sell. The Pittsburgh Penguins hired their new head coach, Dan Muse. Buy or sell, that hire was made because he's bald like Spencer Carberry.
I'm buying that. I think the modus operandi for every front office should be get me a young coach that looks like Lex Luthor, and then you've got yourself something. Look, I mean, like, there's no doubt that Carberry's kind of set a template for teams, and I think Muse, in some ways, kind of fits the same bill. Like, he's going to be great with young players in Pittsburgh. The interesting thing about Muse is, like, do you read it as Kyle Dubas, their general manager, already turning the page and saying, this is a guy for the post-Crosby years? Or is it a situation where they know a lot of the supporting cast around the veteran core next season and maybe even beyond is going to be young, so you need someone who can maximize that talent, and Dan Muse could fit the bill? Or, if you want to get conspiratorial, no one else wanted the job because they know it's
Mm,
it's presiding over the end of a dynasty, and who the hell knows what happens next. I don't know.
yeah.
But yeah, go hire yourself a young, striking, bald Lex Luthor ex coach, and you'll do fine by yourself.
Shave your head, Wish. You'll become a head coach in the National Hockey League. Can't wait to see
I
that.
am blessed with this. My dad is as bald as the day is long, and I am happy that I've kept this hair as long as I have. I have never gone to Turkey. It's all mine, and I'm pleased with that.
I'd like to clarify, my heritage is Turkish. I have not been to Turkey for Turkish hairlines. I just want to be very clear. Okay?
Thank
I
you.
have not
Thank you for the
boarded
clarification.
Turkish hairlines. I just want to be very clear. Okay? Thank you.
Thank
Buy
you.
or sell. Buy or sell. The Colorado Avalanche deserve to be co-favorites with Florida and Edmonton for next season's Stanley Cup. What do you think?
According to the sports books, they are right now, and I think that's a little presumptuous. Look, I think Colorado's great. They re-signed Brock Nelson, so up the gut now you've got McKinnon, Brock Nelson, and Charlie Coyle next season. They're obviously going to do even more work to make that team better. They're a very dangerous team, but the idea that they should be in the same conversation, the same tier as the teams that we're seeing tonight, I don't quite buy it. I think a team like Dallas might be ahead of them. I think a team like Vegas could potentially be ahead of them, depending on what they do in the offseason. So I'm a little bit more bearish on Colorado than the sports books are. So I'll sell on that one. What do you say?
I say that the Colorado Avalanche are in the mix. I agree with the teams that you listed. I don't know if I would put them as high as the Oilers and Panthers. I still think the Oilers, dude, even if they lose this series, unless they lose in 5, I still think they'll come out as the favorite next year. I
think so
do.
too.
I mean, it's the McDavid Draisaitl factor. Okay, I got a scenario. We were just talking about the Devils in the Empire State Building. I got a scenario for you. This summer, at some point, there will be red smoke that emits from the roof of the Empire State Building as the building is lit up black and red, and this will happen when Quinn Hughes is acquired by the New Jersey Devils, and the Hughes trifecta in Jersey is complete. Buy or sell, the Hughes brothers will all be playing for one franchise.
As much as it breaks my heart, because I would love to see the Triforce united in New Jersey, I think Quinn's going to remain a Canuck for the time being. I mean, like, they hire Adam Foote as their head coach. He's Quinn's guy. He's been the defensive coach for the Canucks. He's helped get some of, Quinn Hughes' best seasons have come under the tutelage of Adam Foote. I don't think it's a coincidence he's become the head coach there. I think it's a signal that they're looking to keep him in the short term, hopefully keep him in the long term. But I think they've made the call short term. It might be the right one. Long term, I still think he's going to go play with his brothers. So a little bit more patience in Jersey, a little bit more waiting. By the way, wouldn't it be hilarious if he does play in New Jersey and the player they trade for him is Luke Hughes? Like, that would be very funny in a very cruel familial
Yes.
drama way. But I think he'll at least spend one more year in Vancouver.
Okay, this is the buy or sell. History could possibly repeat itself. So when the Rangers won the Stanley Cup in '94, sorry, Wish, to bring this up. 2 years prior, they won the President's Trophy and they lost in the conference final. The year after that, they missed the playoffs. Then they hired a head coach with the first name Mike. And then the next season, they win the Stanley Cup. All of those things, except for the winning the Stanley Cup, have aligned in the last 2 seasons for the New York Rangers. So buy or sell, new head coach Mike Sullivan will bring the Rangers. Let's temper this. Let's calibrate our enthusiasm and say the Rangers will be back in the postseason under Mike Sullivan's tutelage. Buy or sell?
I'll sell because I don't know what they're doing yet from a roster standpoint. I don't know what they're doing with Kreider. I don't know what they're doing with Zibanejad. I don't know what they're doing with Keandre Miller. I don't know what they're doing with trying to make that roster more in the mold of a JT Miller than it is in the mold of what was there last season. So until I have a better understanding of what the plan is in Manhattan, I can't say they're going to be a playoff team. And oh, by the way, one part of your analogy that you failed to mention where it all falls apart is I don't see them importing half of the 1980s dynasty Oilers to populate the roster in order for them to win the cup.
Yeah, fair enough. And like they'll find a Stefan Matteau somewhere, okay? Like they'll figure it out.
You're on thin ice, Öcal. Bringing up that damn name.
Last one. Buy or sell. The Islanders draft James Higgins, the Boston College standout from Long Island. They have the first overall pick, obviously. Wish you were there to see it all happen at the NHL Network studios. So James Higgins grew up on Long Island. He's a Islanders fan. And they pass up that. And this would mean, though, that they would pass up Matthew Schaefer, who's the projected number 1 overall pick in the draft. Buy or sell?
I'm selling. Like I can't imagine that the Islanders are going to do the Montreal Canadiens thing where like every time there's a French-speaking kid who rooted for the Habs in the draft, they got to pounce on him over other players. Nah, man. Like Schaefer is legit. Higgins could be great, and he's got the local ties. But Matthew Darch, their new GM, he comes from Tampa. He understands inherently that when the Lightning started to build their foundation for championship teams, part of the foundation was definitely Victor Hedman. I'm not saying Schaefer's Victor Hedman at all, but I am saying that, championship teams build from the crease out. He's a valuable part of what they're going to be building on Long Island. And the temptation to draft Higgins is real, but I don't think they're going to pull the trigger. What do you say?
I say that it would be silly to make that a massive factor. I don't know if the gap is massive between Schaefer and Higgins. I've seen Higgins more than Schaefer. He's a great player, but Schaefer, by all accounts, and people that I trust that are reporting on prospects are clear in a way saying Schaefer is the number 1 overall pick. And so it would be silly not to go with that information and not pick the best player on the board. So I'll say Schaefer number 1 Islanders based on that. All right, that has been our buy or sell for the off season, and that wraps things up here after game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final here on The Drop, presented by Discover. A terrific start to the series and a terrific start for our shows. Remember, game number 2 Friday. After that concludes, go to NHL on ESPN YouTube, because soon afterwards you will see Wish and I break down game 2 and be completely boring for 30 to 60 minutes and talk about the Empire State Building and how it should be lit up in Devil's Cup. I don't know, man.
It's fan talk, baby. It's what they love. Game two is going to be a firecracker. Game 2 is going to be a really desperate Panthers team, bringing it like they bought it at times here. And trying to rattle Edmonton. Edmonton got a little bit more rattled than they had been in a lot of parts of these playoffs tonight. But at the end of the day, man, they look poised, they look prepared, and I might look stupid by the end of this series having picked the Cats in 6.
All right, thanks for watching, everybody. This is The Drop presented by Discover. We will see you after game number 2 on Friday.